Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with a review of the Xiaomi 11T Pro. So they dropped the Mi particle and they're just calling it numbers now. 11T Pro is a bit of a fall flagship which excels in charging. That's because it comes, as you saw in the unboxing, with a 120 watt charger, a premiere for the mainstream segment. Priced at around 650 euros, the device has to offer a cinemagic experience, that's what they're calling it, focusing a lot on this Dolby Vision enabled screen and also on the triple back camera with its cinematic modes. Also Harman Kardon speakers and a big battery. Now, first of all, I'm going to refer to the design. So let's start. I would say that the bezels have a medium thickness, not too slim, not too thick. At the same time, we find at the back side glass with a aluminum texture. If you look closely, there is that metallic imitation. It's a mirror finish and also it gets smudgy and dirty pretty easily, but luckily we have a case in the box. So there's an aluminum frame, there's Gorilla Glass Victus at the front and glass at the back. 8.8 millimeters in thickness and a weight of 204 grams is what you're getting here. And aside from that, I would say that the buttons on the left, on the right are pretty comfy. The power one is flat and also integrates the fingerprint scanner, which is quite easy to access. For the sake of protection, we have IP53 certification, which means dust and splash protection. IP68 would have been nice, but that's about it. This hue is called meteorite gray and it's quite the looker. This one is a comfy phone. I would even go ahead and say it's okay to handle with a single hand. However, if you have a smaller hand, you may have some problems reaching the top part of the screen, which, as you can see, not much of a problem for me. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I think it's time to discuss the screen you're seeing here. I would say it's one of the selling points. After all, we are dealing with a 6.67 inch AMOLED panel with a resolution of 2400 over 1080 pixels, 20:9 aspect ratio, Gorilla Glass Victus protection, Dolby Vision support, which is something rare, if not unseen so far from all the phones we've tested, and also 1 billion colors to show, 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR10 Plus. It's crammed to the brim with innovation and technology, this panel. Now the actual experience involves the video playback, which we have here prepared for you. Let's turn down the music a bit and check it out. Okay, so first of all, the punch hole for the selfie camera doesn't bother me. It's not that big. At the same time, we're dealing with a very bright screen, which is pretty crisp in image. It displays vivid colors, which I would say are a bit whiter than usual. That's just my impression. The contrast is solid. Even in the full sunlight, the screen remains legible, so the text can be easily comprehended even on an extremely sunny day. We also have very wide view angles, both vertically and horizontally, so it's a quality panel indeed, as promised by Xiaomi. Now, if you want to talk about the results of our tests, we have our sister site here, and let's first talk about the brightness. Okay, so this AMOLED panel achieved in our test 603 lux units. This is an excellent score, surpassing the likes of the Motorola Edge 20 Pro, the Galaxy S21 Plus, and also the Galaxy S21 Ultra even. It's below the Vivo S60 Pro, Xiaomi Mi 11 and the Huawei P40 Pro. As usual with such solid screens, we're also getting a lot of settings to tweak it. I will start with the always on display, which can be tweaked from here. You can set an inspirational message, and I want to give you a tip. If you have something like, I don't know, smoking addiction or try to give up a certain food, you can write a message here to always remind you to give it up more easily. Okay, next up we also have the display section where you can find your light mode and dark mode, brightness level, an anti-flicker mode, a reading mode, which is kind on the eyes, gentle on the eyes, color scheme with a huge amount of options, ranging from the colors to the adaptive colors, color temperature, and even more color gamut options here. Original P3 sRGB, color, space, hue, saturation, value, contrast, gamma, and so much more. There's the refresh rate, which can be set to 120 or 60 Hz. This is the standard. From the factory it was set to 60 Hz, but I prefer 120 for gaming. And well, that's about it. Quite a few options, have to say it again. Now, we go inside the phone and we find the friendly face, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888, which has been pretty much a staple of the flagships from the year 2021. This 5nm 5G octa-core CPU has the Adreno 660 GPU, and in the current case is accompanied by only 8 gigs of RAM. There's also a version, as far as I know, there should be a version with 12, but we have 8, and 256 gigabytes of storage, which is actually not that bad. No microSD here, just so you know. Also no lag and overheating. We played Asphalt 9 a lot. You can also play Genshin Impact, Call of Duty Mobile with zero problems and with zero overheating. As usual, we've done a few tests, but not all of them. The device doesn't support 3D Mark and GFX Bench for some reason, but it does support Antutu 8, where we scored on the 18th spot. Now, we surpassed iPhone 12 Pro Max, also the Galaxy Z Flip 3, but we scored below the Galaxy S21 and Vivo S60 Pro, also the OnePlus 9 Pro. In Geekbench 5, in the multi-core subtest, we're just a smidge above the Galaxy S21 Ultra 5G and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. We also surpassed the Oppo Find X3 Pro, which was a pretty powerful phone, but we stayed below the Xperia 1 Mark III and the OnePlus 9, as well as the Realme GT 5G. Now, 3D Mark didn't work, so let's see, for example, base Mark OS. Here we're just above the Realme GT 5G, and we're also below the OnePlus 9 Pro. We scored the 10th spot. So the phone feels like it should finish the year around top 15, top 20. That's the performance we're getting here. And as far as the temperature is concerned, you shouldn't be concerned. We only reached a top value of 34 degrees Celsius in benchmark, so there's no overheating here. Now, as far as the battery is concerned, we have here a 5000 mAh lithium polymer unit, which has a crazy 120 watt charging, promising on paper to juice up the phone in just 17 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you're at 72% apparently. Now I'm going to start with a video playback test. Typically, Snapdragon 888 phones have been a disappointment this year when it comes to battery life. This one isn't, with 18 hours and 37 minutes of continuous video playback. It's actually one of the best when it comes to Snapdragon 888 phones. It beats Huawei Mate 40 Pro, it beats iPhone 12 Pro Max, OnePlus 9 series, and also quite a few other handsets with that CPU. It's below the OnePlus 8T, the Xiaomi 11T, and the Galaxy Note 10 Plus, if I remember correctly. When it comes to continuous usage, we're also doing fine, perhaps even better than the previous result, 14 hours and 29 minutes. This is even more surprising. It surpasses Huawei P40 Pro, iPhone 12 Pro Max, Xperia 5 Mark II, OnePlus 9, and quite a few other phones. It's below the Realme 8 Pro, Xiaomi 11T, OnePlus 8, and Xiaomi 10T Pro. Now the charging is something out of this realm. It took me 25 minutes for a full charge from 0 to 100% with a bit of a correction. As the phone gets to 0%, it requires several minutes to figure out what's happening to it, so it loses about 3, 4 or even 5 minutes, reaching from that status of uncharged to 0%. There's that moment after it gets to 0 when it starts to charge up. So it actually may be lower than 25. So that's pretty cool. Basically, after just 15 minutes, you're at 60% and good to go, and that's a crazy charging time, crazy good, of course. As usual, Xiaomi, when it comes to the 11 or Mi 11 series, it goes all out. It gives you Harman Kardon acoustics. They've been doing that ever since the Mi 11, and it separates the top speaker and bottom speaker from the earpiece here, which is a pretty cool decision. We don't have an audio jack, but we do have Dolby Atmos and quite a few customizations. If you go to the area here and go to the sound effects, we have Dolby Atmos, we have presets, dynamic video, music and voice, and a graphic equalizer with genres and 10 channels to play with. Okay, now I'm going to resort to YouTube and play a copyright-free tune. Okay, so one of the best basses I've heard recently, very solid bass, I would say a pretty loud volume, although I've heard louder than that. excellent high notes, a very good separation of the frequencies, and true stereophony. The button speaker doesn't overlap the top one and vice versa. Okay, so you don't have to believe me, we have a decibel meter test here. The power of the volume reaches 85.7 decibels at the bottom and 85.2 decibels at the top, measured with a special tool and an acoustic sample, which means we're above Motorola Edge 20 Pro and Galaxy A52 5G, but at the same time below the Xiaomi Mi 11, Galaxy S21 Ultra and Realme 8 Pro. In games I was a little bit disappointed, we just reached 91.4 decibels, we usually require above 100. In real life it felt louder, but in this case we're just beating Galaxy S20 Plus and scoring below dozens of other flagships, including the Mi 11 and the S21 series. I think we're done with the acoustics and it's time to discuss the front camera. It's a 16 megapixel shooter, which I find to be odd. They should have integrated, or could have integrated, a 20 megapixel camera from the Mi 11 Lite, from the Mi 11, from the entire Mi 11 series. Anyways, 16 megapixel in a punch hole or at the back side. Triple setup, 108 megapixel camera. No optical image stabilization this time. It's a Samsung ISOCELL HM2 sensor, combines 9 pixels in one. Has face detection autofocus. It's accompanied by the ultra-wide camera here at the back, 8 megapixel Sony fixed focus, and a telemacro 5 megapixel Samsung camera with autofocus this time. There is the dual LED dual tone flash here. We have 8K 30 frames per second video capture, a pro mode, AI mode, night mode, vlog mode, slow-mo, movie effects, and so much more. Now, if you go to the gallery, we have quite a few shots, actually almost 300 of them taken during the day, during the night, and even some on my very own balcony because I have some pretty flowers to show off. Okay, so these ones were meant to show off the close-ups of the camera, which are quite solid. Back in the days of the Galaxy S20 Ultra and the Huawei P40 Pro, close-ups were disappointing, while this one takes some pretty nifty ones. And the colors are spot on. These are the selfies I've taken on the balcony, but I think that the ones taken outside are more relevant, so here we go. Here I have photos of a statue with a pretty unnatural sky color, which will not be repeated. Bokeh is quite well done with the main camera, and these are the first selfies. I would say that we have a lot of details here. You can see the pores, you can see the eyes and the facial expression, and you can see the hair down to each thread. So that's a lot of detail. I'm also happy with the focusing, but the face is a bit too white for my liking. Anyway, also very good cut in the bokeh, very good highlight of the main subject from the background. So far so good. Solid close-ups of flowers, no matter the color. And another set of selfies. You can see the eyes better this time. I deactivated any sort of beautifying effects so you can get the real deal. Lovely texture of the water, which you have here. So this one is a regular shot. This one is an ultra-wide shot, which doesn't deform the colors too much, but if you look in the distance and the details, they fade away a little compared to the main camera. Okay, more colors here. They're pretty much kept in check, so reds are truly red, blues are truly blue. The only thing that's weird is maybe the grass behind. It's a bit oversaturated compared to the real grass. This is a crow which I saw. This is 2x zoom, which is okay, but when you go to 5x, there's quite a bit of noise. We're definitely missing the telephoto camera here. These are some fantastic macros, some of the best I've taken, so you'll be sure to take some nice macros with this phone. These ones aren't very successful. I had to bend over and capture this nut, or whatever this is, chestnut, so didn't come out very well. More shots here in color. Regular shot, ultra wide shot. As you can see, not much difference, but details are being lost in the tree, in the foliage, and macros again with an amazing amount of detail of the moss on the rock. So that's pretty much it. I would place this daytime camera performance between the Galaxy S20 series and the S21, maybe with slightly better colors, but still with oversaturation. Okay, so now let's analyze the low light shots we've taken here. I have to say that there is an AI here, aside from the one you can activate, which quickly figures out it's a night shot and activates its own flavor of night mode. And I mean, it's pretty efficient, but when you deactivate it, things are a bit sharper and a bit darker. I mean, the choice is yours if you want more light or more sharpness. In general, the photos were okay. The only underwhelming ones were the ultra wide ones. I would say it behaves like a true flagship. in most scenarios, especially with the night mode on. It's not one that makes the night become day. It's rather a more, I would say, pragmatical one, which keeps things in check. So too much lighting would be odd during the night time. And I have to say that the colors are pretty spot on, especially when there's a lot of artificial light around. You'll be happy with the results even in ultra wide, which is actually not bad. And one of the most relevant scenes, aside from this ice cone with a perfect portrait, is actually here. So this is a typical shot, no night mode. This is the typical shot in a very dark situation. This is the AI activated night mode. This is the actual night mode from the settings after a few seconds of exposure, and this is once again the AI, and this is a photo with the flash on, so this is slightly bluish. Honestly, I actually prefer the AI this time. It's a bit kinder on the image, as you can see here. It leaves some shades. This one makes it brighter, but it doesn't exaggerate with the brightness, although there's that, I would say, cartoonish effect which appears sometimes in night shots. Things tend to look a bit like a sketch drawing, a pencil drawing. That's one drawback I've seen on many phones, including high profile ones. And there are also quite a lot of reflections, and the lights are quite big, particularly in the ultra wide shots. I would say it's something like you would get on a 2020 flagship. Okay, so we're done with the photos. Let's talk about videos, and to keep things easier, I'm going to resort to the video app here, provided I can find it. Here we go, Mi Video, local, and we have quite a few of those here. Okay, so to keep things relevant, we're going to see them one at a time. We also have an 8K video, and what I can tell you about that 8K video is that it's quite shaky. Here it is. I mean, it's clear and all. There is a bit of oversaturation for the glass. A bit of oversaturation for the grass. A lot of details, excellent clarity, but you can clearly see that the stabilization is lacking. There's a lot of shakiness going around here, and the sky is a bit too white in certain areas. Okay, so if you're on color, this is definitely the video you want. Excellent color calibration here, once again, except for the grass, which at times appears to be a radioactive, too intense green. However, not as bad as we've seen on the Galaxy S20 Plus. This is a focus test on a Mickey Mouse ear and on the background, alternating between them in a pretty fast manner. Autofocus is very fast, that's a big plus. What's not a big plus is the stabilization, which I tested with the special steady mode on. At first it looks okay. We're descending stairs here, quite rapidly, I would add. And if you look closely, the image is trepidating a bit, it's trembling. So there's that. Stabilization is a bit lacking in this regard. Okay, so we also have a dual mode here, capture with the front camera and the back camera at the same time. And we have this cool effect, alternate world. It's inspired by the movie Inception, one of the core cinematic modes of the handset. And we also have one more here, 4K video with some very crisply rendered water. This is one of the few videos where I actually have zero bad comments about the colors. They're pretty well calibrated. And we also have a selfie video, which feels more like something you would achieve with a Galaxy A series phone like the A52, A72, or even the A71 from last year, because it's a bit too bright and has an intense contrast. Those were taken during the day. One conclusion would be that it feels more like a high mid-range phone, except for the level of details in 4K and 8K. Too bad for the stabilization. During the night time, video will definitely look like this. It's actually not bad, to be honest. It's a bit surprising, actually. And also surprise is the difference if you change frame rate. I mean, this is a typical 4K 30 frames per second video with a lot of reflections, but check this out. I had a surprise. So 4K 60 frames per second, very dark, feels a bit off. But once I change this 4K 60 FPS in exactly the same scenario to a 4K 30 FPS, this happens. A much larger quantity of light, which leads me to believe that we're probably using another camera for this. The difference in quantity of light is huge, and it's actually a decent filming in 4K 30 frames. Okay, we're done with the camera. Overall, I would once again place it between the Galaxy S20 series and the S21. And as far as connectivity is concerned, you have all the bells and whistles. I mean, you do have 5G, you also have Wi-Fi 6 here. There's also NFC for your payment needs. There's Bluetooth 5.2 to connect two pair of headphones at the same time. GPS dual band. We have an infrared emitter here at the top side. You can use the phone like a remote for your TV set. And we also have USB-C 2.0 at the bottom. The calls were loud and clear, and we also did perform some speed tests, so let's see how that panned out. This is actually a fast.com test, 590 megapers, repeated multiple times, 650 megapers in upload, and we have a series of download tests here. 675 megapers download speeds and 697 megapers upload speeds. I would say we're doing quite fine when it comes to this. Now, as far as the software is concerned, we have done a ton of reviews of the Xiaomi phones this year. It's the same experience. I mean, it's MIUI 12.5 applied on top of Android 11. We have the Google News feed here. We have the recent like this on two columns with the ability to clean everything and do a security scan. The drop-down section is actually split in the control center, inspired by iOS, and the notification center, which you can see here. We can also unify them in a typical Android experience, but Xiaomi wants to stand out. Aside from the recents, you also have floating windows for an extra layer of, multitasking. Pinch the screen and you're greeted with some excellent looking wallpapers, the super wallpapers, which have geometry, faraway rings, the rings of Saturn, which I honestly don't remember seeing. Actually tested most of them, and they have the super cool dynamic 3D effects, which you're probably going to enjoy. You also have the home one and the red planet, and let's see how this one is. That's pretty mind-blowing. Okay, and you also have themes, so you can change the design of your phone and the look. You have widgets, and you also have the app drawer, which is organized in categories at the top: communication, entertainment, photography, tools, news, shopping, and games. Now, aside from this, if you want to quickly get into the settings, we have the connectivity options, always on display, sound, notification and control center, themes, password and security. I'm using this power button and its fingerprint scanner for the unlock, and it's quite snappy. The digital well-being and parental control. We have extra settings here, like the quick ball, a collection of widgets, one-handed mode and screen recorder. Special features include the game turbo for gamers, which sometimes is activated by, benchmarks. And I would say that's about it, give or take a few apps. The most useful one of them being called security, which is basically your hub for everything performance related. There's a cleaner, there's a security scan, there's a battery area, there's a booster, there's Facebook cleaner, and so much more. I think we've covered everything, and if you haven't, there's always the text review for the handset. Now, let's go back here and show you our website some more, and let's talk about the pros and cons of buying the Xiaomi 11T Pro. On the Pro side, we obviously got the premium build here and premium materials, and the imitation of metal from the glass back is interesting. The screen is excellent, actually one of the best we've seen around, I have to admit that. It's one of the best screens on the market. I'm talking about the fact we have Dolby Vision, 120 Hz, and the whole HDR thing. Also bright and crisp, solid performance all around on account of the Snapdragon 888 and enough RAM. Okay battery life and very fast charging, the fastest on the market. Great stereo speakers, fast Wi-Fi, good selfies, good close-ups, and bokeh was also nice. Decent colors if you're not talking about vegetation, and 3 major Android updates. Those are the pros. On the cons, the back gets a bit smudgy and stained by fingerprints. There's no IP68, no wireless charging, poor stabilization for the video, or let's not call it poor, let's call it underwhelming rather. I would also mention the lack of a proper level of zoom. I would also remind you of the ultra-wide shots we've taken during the nighttime, which were also underwhelming. Some oversaturation here and there in photos and videos, were lacking optical image stabilization, and I would say that the selfies were a bit white in the sun. That's it. So basically the phone covers everything you need except for optical image stabilization and zoom. It's definitely a traveler's phone because travelers are on the go, and the fact that you can charge it in around 15 to 25 minutes is a big plus if you're a traveler. A traveler that needs a 108 megapixel camera, which is quite solid, and also needs a dependable selfie camera, which we also check out, and needs to consume videos on this very crisp and bright screen. So if you don't need optical image stabilization and a lot of zoom, this covers all the other aspects. It's a media phone, it's a media creation phone. You can create content on it and consume content with it, and it got some pretty solid speakers with Harman Kardon and Dolby Atmos. So media phone with a lot of power and pretty future proof. That's the best description for the Xiaomi 11T Pro. Bye bye.